challenge of going from college. You guys are professional, and so that's another whole challenge in and of itself. And so learning how to sort of translate that skill set that all of you have into a resume can be really challenging unless you sort of know the step-by-step on actually how to do that. And so today we're really going to talk about sort of the bare bones of resume writing so that you'll be able to go forward and create this for yourself as you move towards other types of jobs in the future, okay? But just to begin with, what are some of your concerns? As you think about your own resume, what are some of the things that you may be concerned about, just so I have a general idea? Or are we not concerned at all? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel in resume writing?
7 or 8.
Okay, that's a pretty high number. What about you guys?
I'll say 5.
5, okay.
About 7 or 8.
Okay, fantastic.
Do y'all have resumes currently that you've already written up, or?
I do. I got one that I started.
Okay, started, so we can maybe see how to continue this. Oh, I hope this works, yay. An employer, like these ladies here, might only spend about 10 seconds actually glancing at a resume for the very first time. And so you really have to think about what is going to stand out on your resume initially to help them go that further step and actually read through your resume. And so we're going to talk today about how to really make that resume stand out so it's really easy to read initially. It is a business card. You know, this is sort of your professional summary, your qualifications, skills, and sort of your background, and actually how you can express to them how your skill set matches what they're hiring for. Okay, and you have to do that in a very succinct way. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about tailoring your resume, because a lot of people think, I'm just going to make one resume and I'm going to send that out to 50 different employers. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works anymore. We really have to tailor every single resume to the job itself to make sure that you're really showing how you're the best fit for that position. Okay, so one of the things I try to avoid, unless you absolutely need a template, I try to avoid templates just because they put in a lot of extra space in your resume that you really don't need. And so I really encourage you not to go onto Word or Google and just try to find a template. I would honestly say just pull up a Word document. It's really easy to create one in Word. Just to be clear and concise, at this point, no high school experience because you guys are in college. You've already had some professional experience as well. So no high school should be on your resume. So just some of the general tips, and I'm going to show you lots of examples of this, but you want to do reverse chronological order within each section. So let's say you have, professional experience. You just want to make sure the newest things, the things that you're currently doing are just finished, are first in those columns, and then the oldest things are last on the document. Thinking about using bold titles for the things that you've done, and not just lower and uppercase letters, but really bold titles to make things stand out. Anything in bold on the document, that's what the employer is going to see first. And so thinking about some of those keywords. For instance, these ladies are in HR. Let's say they're hiring for an HR management position. You may want to have a bold title saying HR experience. So something that immediately just draws out for them. Be consistent with font. So just choose one type of font. Don't use multiple types. And also just make sure your spacing is very consistent all the way through the document. Try never to use any type of sentences or paragraphs on the resume. And a lot of that has to do with you explaining like I did this or we did this, or never use personal pronouns. And the bullet points are really easy to read. And so think about using action verbs to really describe what you've accomplished with that bullet point. And I'm going to show you lots of examples, I promise. One page typically for a resume, unless you've got lots and lots of experience that's relevant to the position. Most people don't. And so just think about, how much experience do you have up to this point that really is relevant to what you're going for. I heard you say earlier that you've been working, you said your uncle in housing with his construction business. You may have had years and years of experience with that actually relates to the job you want to have. That may require a 2-page, it just depends. So let's try for 1, and then if it really has to be 2, it needs to be 2 full pages of relevant information, okay? Quantify whenever possible, so any type of numbers you can put in, things that you have attained through the work, whether you supervised a certain amount of individuals, whether you brought in a certain amount of money, whatever it may have been. Margins, don't go only as low as 0.5 to about 1 inch. And then also font size, you probably want to keep it about 10 or 11. 12 is actually really, really big. 12 is, I really have nothing to put on the resume and I need to make it as big as possible. So you're probably going to have a 10 or 12 font resume. Use bullet points again, and then also avoid too much white space. So I'll show you some examples of this. So what should, in general, we include in the resume? What do you guys think, what have you already included in your resume? What are some of the sections?
Education,
Mm-hmm.
like accolades and awards you accomplished.
Uh-huh.
Work experience,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. those
little
are good.
bio.
Okay, possibly a bio. Yep. So these are some of the general things for the personal information at the very top of the resume. Name, home address, phone number, your email address. If you actually have a LinkedIn profile, that would be really great to add as well. If you have any type of online portfolio or website as well, sometimes depending upon your major, you may have a website or portfolio, but you may not. So some of those general things. So this is what a header could look like, all these different ways to do it. For individuals who have a lot to put on a resume, I really encourage the second one from the top because it really gets all that information into 2 spaces versus the one at the bottom, which takes up 5 spaces of white space on the resume. The other 2 are very nice, but it really comes down to your style and actually how big you need it to be on a resume. Okay, I like the second from the top, just because it's not the most important information on the resume, so it doesn't really need to take up all that space. All right, so your objective statement. This is more of an optional thing, and maybe you guys can speak to this too. An objective is good if you want to use an objective. You don't always have to use an objective. For instance, to obtain the HR position with EVA, right? So very, very specific to what you're applying for, to the actual name of the company, and also you could say, utilizing my whatever type of skills you want to say you're utilizing. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is an example. So seeking the challenging position of Creative Communications Director at Mighty Marketing to contribute in developing new and innovative marketing strategies and tactics. So very, very specific to what you're applying for. It just gives the reader sort of an advance notice so they can actually pull out the job description and be very familiar with how your skills are actually going to line up with these particular jobs. A summary, some of you might want to use a summary, and there's actually examples in this in our career guide, which I'll point to in just a few minutes. But a summary is really great if there are a lot of those qualities you want to talk about. Even like, I'm just thinking for you guys, like your competitive nature, teamwork, effort, things like that you want to speak to, but it's really hard to speak to that, like I've worked at this. And so maybe, if certain jobs are requiring a certain type of quality, but it's really hard to speak to that within a work experience or even your team, a summary is really great for that. And so if you want to turn, where did this print? Do you mind if I borrow your print real quick? If you want to turn to the middle of the guide, it's on page 27. There's an example of a summary section, and this is not appropriate for every single person who's doing a resume, but it just really depends on, can you really describe what you've accomplished within the actual work and experiences, or do you really need that summary section? Okay, so you can see the summary on Natalie Parker's resume on page 27. You can see how she talks about project management she's done, excellent team building and management skills. So it's more the intangibles you want to talk about. Okay. So here again, just some examples of what a summary might be. Okay, so like you said earlier, education is a really great section. For those of you who are still in school, which you are, this is going to probably be number 1 on the page, unless it really has nothing to do with what you're applying for, and you could then put it towards the bottom. It's really up to you. But since you are still a student, I would recommend keeping it at the top. Once you've been working, 4 or 5 through about 10 years, that's when it starts going to the bottom. But you want to include, the university names, the University of Georgia, your whole degree title. Try not to abbreviate. Not like a BS in something, the date that you're actually going to graduate. You don't have to put the range that you've been here. You just put the date of graduation. If your major has a different degree title than the actual whole degree, you can put that separate major, as well as any minors. If you would like to put your GPA, you can. Also, if you've done any kind of study abroad, or if you financed your education, for instance, through athletic scholarships, you can certainly put that on there as well. So this is an example. You can see the University of Georgia's in bold, so it's really easy to see. And in this example, the degree itself is in bold, and then it's italicized just to show a little bit of a difference. You can see the date that they're going to graduate, they minored in sociology, and some of those different things they've also included. Okay? But you don't have to include all of that. Those are just some of the things you could include. So I get a lot of questions from students about, do I include coursework? You know, is it appropriate to include coursework? For you guys who, like, especially for you who are probably going into housing, what career are you just considering in the future?
Coaching.
Sorry?
Coaching.
Coaching, okay. So, I mean, if there are any types of like communications classes you've done or organizational classes that might be appropriate, you really want to think about the courses that you've taken that really are related to the actual job. Whether it's research-based, whether it's the projects you've done, you know, if they're really not related, the employer probably doesn't need to know that. Okay, so that's more fluff on the resume that does not need to be there. But again, here are some examples. These are all these communication courses. And so you can see how you could just list them like this, but actually in the career guide on the same page 27, you can see something called project experience. And so this actually is a little bit stronger. So instead of just saying I was in an advanced public communication course, I could actually go in and talk about a project I did in that class, which is a little bit stronger. It's almost like a job that you could talk about rather than just listing bullets of courses. So kind of be strategic, and, you know, as you think about the courses you're in right now, some of the projects you're trying to finish, how could those, again, really showcase your skill set as you're starting to apply in the future for some of these positions?
And it gives us stuff to talk about, too.
Absolutely.
Interesting, and you kind of can expand on it. So I think that's helpful, too.
Absolutely. And we know you guys are really busy. I mean, you're professional athletes, so you may not have all this time to do all these internships and part-time and full-time jobs. So, I mean, really thinking about the experience you're getting in the classroom is going to be really key. Prioritize your experiences, and this is really key for the entire document. So, prioritize what are the most important experiences you want the employer to see first that really line up with what you're applying for. And you always want to make sure that is on the first of the resume. And also, we've got an entire, if you look on a couple of pages after that, page 30, we actually have 2 pages of action verbs that we want you to draw from. I see a lot of resumes. They're just like, I helped, or, you know, talked, or, you know, worked somewhere. We really want you to use some dynamic action verbs to make it sound really interesting. Employers are probably really sick and tired of certain action verbs. You know, think about, did you collaborate it? And I know for some of you it might be difficult. I used to do a lot of coaching myself, and so it's really hard to say coached all the time. So how else can you say that? I collaborated, or I led, or, you know, all these different verbs. And so this is a really good cheat sheet of how to make a resume sound a little bit more interesting. And so again, just some of the things you could potentially put on your resume, you know, any type of athletic experience you've had, college on, if you've had any internships, if you've done any types of research within your degree, and also any jobs that you've had along the way. And I'll go back, because I already said don't put anything from high school, but if you had a job that's really relevant from high school, that would be very appropriate, kind of like with your housing. That would be very appropriate if it really is relevant. Okay, so this is just one way you could list some, and you can do this with your pro experience as well. This is just an example of a college experience. You know, you can talk about the scholarship you received. You can talk about how many hours you dedicated to your sport. You can talk about the position you played, any types of honors that went along with that, and of course other things as well. If you led certain things, or you know, involved with a team, like a small group or mentoring type program, you can always list those things as well.
What page is it?
This is not on a page, unfortunately. This is just on my slide. Feel free to
Can
take a picture. We don't actually have it in the book. Just made this
can we
really
get a
nice.
copy of the PowerPoint?
Yes,
Is
I
that
can,
possible?
yeah, absolutely. Matt, I can send it to you, and you can pass it on to them. And so this is kind of, again, it's very similar format, okay? So you can see the title of their position, you can see the company name, dates, location, and also some of these action verbs, you know, detailing what they've accomplished. And so again, we're being very, very specific. You know, this individual, very specific with the software they're using, you know, recruitment, implementing different things. And so be as detail-oriented as you possibly can. Okay. And also, I do want to highlight job shadowing experiences. I know personally back in the day, I didn't have a lot of time as an athlete to do all these internships, and so I actually did some job shadowing, and I was so grateful for that because I could then put that on a resume. So So don't feel like it has to be many, many months of experience. It can be shorter terms of experience as well. Again, if it's relevant. Okay, so and again, I would say if you have a good 2+, 3+ types of awards, you can actually have its own category for this. We do have several examples in our normal career guides about sort of how to set that up. And again, it depends on how relevant those awards are to what you're applying. Does that go at the first of the document? Does it go at the bottom? Our examples, it shows it a lot at the bottom. It just really depends on what you're doing. Okay, how relevant is that award? Okay, and again, things like Dean's List or Employee of the Month, if you're a part of any kind of honor society, and again, athletic honor roll, things like that. Any type of volunteer. Did you guys do some volunteer? Yep. So again, some of those things can go in there too, and it doesn't have to be you volunteered for 6 months. You may have done things with a team, and so it may have just been one day. But just think about, where did you volunteer first of all, and what were some of the things that you personally accomplished in that actual that opportunity.
How long is a resume supposed to be?
1 page. Yep. But again, you have to think about how relevant is that experience. Okay, and one thing I would want to encourage you is what we call a master resume is an ongoing document that you're actually never going to send to anyone. I want you would honestly just to compile a master document. It can be 10 pages long if you want it to be, okay? It has every single thing you've ever done, every volunteer, every sport, everything you did in high school if you want to. This is just a really great way to then pull from that experience and make those 1-page tailored documents, okay? So that's really what I encourage you to do. I don't have an example in my guide, but it's really this, just expanded to many, many pages. Lots and lots of detail.
So I would also say, like, with this type of thing, if this isn't necessarily relevant to the job you're applying for, and so or maybe you don't have room for it, you can still put, a bullet point of,
Right.
like, regular volunteer with Habitat for Humanity or something like that. If you still want it to be in there, you want to summarize it if it's something that's important to you. But you maybe don't need to put all of this if you don't have room or something. You can still put it on there.
If you look on page 27, you could do something very similar to the campus and community involvement. On the bottom of Emily Hunter's resume, you can see how everything is very abbreviated. So the company, what their sort of title was, if they were a tutor, the location, and then the dates that they were there. So again, 1 line, 4 pieces of information, but they get it in at least to show that they were very active. Okay? Before I go on, any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot out at you, but how are we doing with all this? You doing okay? All right, so other things to maybe consider putting on, any type of technical skill that you have, any languages, research experience, leadership experience, especially team-wise, projects you've done in class, very important, any type of computer skills, and also any type of international experience you may have. Things you should not put on a resume. It's nice to know, like in an interview, you may be able to share some of those common interests with the employer. Sometimes it's very appropriate to talk about certain hobbies or interests if the employer sort of initiates it. But on a resume, that is simply not needed to, you don't need to put that. You don't ever need to, say whether you're single or married, what, your political affiliation, and also abbreviations and acronyms. Always spell things out, full title. You don't need to be fancy fonts, photos, even fancy paper is not necessary. I see a lot of resumes that they're trying to be fancy in the borders and colors and everything. And my rule of thumb is unless you're really going into a graphic arts, type field, you really need to stay very plain because that's what employers are used to, and we don't want you to stand out in a bad way. And so be plain unless you're going into a very creative field. Okay,
Some of those things we aren't allowed legally to ask about.
Right.
So it's not, it actually makes it worse for us if you have something about your age or something like that on there, like I know sometimes people put pictures on there,
Yeah.
and it actually is not good for us, because then we've seen something or know something that we can't ask about or talk about, and we wouldn't want that to come up later, that we discriminate against someone, because it puts something on a resume that we didn't really want to talk about or know about. So sometimes it's better just to stay away from it altogether. I think that's good advice.
Absolutely. This is this is an athlete resume that I just wanted to show sort of how you could sort of set this up with your experience, project experience, your athletic experience. It could be athletic experience comes first. It really just depends on what's most relevant to what you're applying. So, what's going to showcase your organizational skills, your leadership skills, could even be your competitive ability, sales ability, things like that, working with people, customer service. So what's really going to highlight that for you? Okay, so we're going to do a brief activity. All right. Resume trivia. I'm going to have you guys pick a category. Something's going to come up, and I want you to tell me what's wrong with what's up there. Okay? Here's some things. Who wants to go first? Just throw it out, I'll push it. What should we look at first? This is the interactive part of our presentation.
Personal information.
Personal information. Okay, so tell me what is wrong about this.
The picture.
Okay, what's wrong with the email? Is it an appropriate email? It's not appropriate. Okay, yeah, it depends on the job. So making sure that your email really does reflect your professionalism. It's fine to have, your first and last name, but again, try to avoid, any too creative emails. You can always have a creative email for personal, reasons, but when you think about for very professional purposes, just make sure it's very plain and to the point. Okay. What else is not so great about this?
No picture.
No picture. That's right. So she included her picture. She's got, multiple phone numbers, so it's kind of confusing about which one to call. So just pick the main number that you would like to be called. Yes, yes, unless she goes by J.A. So, do any of you go by like a nickname? Go by your first names? Okay. Any type of nickname, you can always put that in parentheses. So.
And it does give you pause, because a lot of times we do email them first. And so you're like,
Yep.
wait a minute. You really do, and you're like typing it in, like, that's what I'm like, please come over here and look at this.
And back to the phone thing, make sure you're answering, whatever your message is on your phone, that is just very appropriate for an employer. We heard, the funniest one I've heard about is an employer called this phone, and it was like a rap video song on the phone. They had like recorded their own rap. And that, for them, just was not as appropriate, an answer for their personal phone call. So, just like for their answering, services, just make sure you're answering very professional sounding so that employers do call you. Okay, what's the next category you want to check out?
Honors and award.
Okay. Well, what about this? Right. So that's a little old, right? A little old. What else? What else could be better? Okay, so just not being vague, being very specific. You could. With the dean's list, that's more, just tell me the semesters you got dean's list. So again, just putting some of that detail in there. Oops, did it the wrong way. Okay, what's the next one?
It's your turn, guys. We don't think
What'd you say?
It's his turn.
Hobbies.
You said hobbies? Okay. Hobbies.
What you say about the Army not
Yes! Very good. Very good. Okay. What next? You guys are doing very well.
Education.
Education. Okay. What about this?
Responsible for financing 0%.
Okay. Probably not needed to say that, right? It doesn't really help their case at all. What else?
And freedom of hospital.
Right. Correct. Unless you had just lots of involvement or experience in high school, it really needs to be shown on that resume.
Yeah, majors, probably no major.
Exactly. Very good. And also the dates. You don't again need to put the range in there, just the date you're actually graduating. Let's do one more. Relevant experience. Okay.
That's all this stuff.
Yeah. That's good. Tell me why. Why is it messed up?
supposed to put I or something.
Right. are these bullet points?
No.
And they told they
The
got fired.
paragraph, is this easy to read in like 5 seconds?
You ain't
No.
supposed to say you got fired, you.
Right, exactly. You want to keep every single thing you say
I love
very
this.
positive about yourself. So
I know
just-
which word we would key in on.
Yeah.
Fired. Oh, moving on.
There could have been some bolding in here, there could have been, something to help things stand out a little bit more. The date is very broad, 2008, what does that mean? 1 month, 1 year? So just, again, just some examples of things to think about when you're
Intern,
creating
there's
your
an
own.
intern that was fired, that's never good. Had a couple of those though.
Let's see. The next slide will pop up. Oops. Let me go back.
Do not lie.
There we go. Yes, do not lie on your resume. Use the job description overall to guide you, okay? It is the guide for your resume. So whatever types of qualifications, job duties that, they're requiring of you, really use that to actually build that very tailored document. So again, you can take your master document that you have, copy and paste over into a very, very specific document for that job itself. Make sure it's formatted, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be this really in-depth document. It just needs to be very detailed. Make sure all the spelling and grammar is correct. You can also save it, like if you're uploading it as a Word document to like a job site, you can also save it as a PDF just in case, because sometimes the formatting changes a little bit. And so an employer, it's really nice. Maybe you guys can speak to that as well. Would you prefer to get Word
No.
and
PDF.
PDF?
Yeah.
Okay. So, they actually like PDF more. And then it's also kind of like the master document. This is a document that is always going to be in progress. You're never going to have a complete resume and that just be it, because you're going to continue growing and working and developing yourself professionally. So it's really great to have this sort of this one document just to keep everything in place. I've known people to have 40 different resumes, and it's so hard to go and try to figure out which one to use for what. Just have one very long resume and then pull from it and then apply to those very specific positions. Saves you hours of time. We do have lots of different career events, and anytime you're interested in coming to anything, that's right.
Now, in order to go to a career event,
Yeah.
would you need your resume? Because I think that's the reason why I
Depends.
haven't went, because I don't have a resume.
It depends on what the event is. We have lots of different information sessions with different employers. For those, you don't always have to have a resume. Any career fairs, yes, it would be great if you do have a resume. We have resume critiques every single day from 12 to 2 in our office at Clark Hill Hall. You're also welcome to just make an appointment with Brittany, for instance, and come and have her really look at your resume in depth. We have so many different resume days. We have, the MLC is, we have satellite hours over there, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. I know that may conflict sometime with classes and whatnot, but we do have a lot of availability. And actually, for housing, Brittany does her own satellite hours in that building. So, but in addition, it's nice for employers to actually see a resume. It's not that they take the resume and you've applied. So it's more just like your calling card. And so you come to a career fair, be able to present your resume, and then if you're interested in that opportunity, you go onto our DogLink website and then apply for DogLink. Okay, or on the employer's website personally.
And if you give them something, then they can write a note.
Yep.
Like if they left, especially if we get a bunch of resumes, when we got to meet you,
Mhm.
make a big difference.
And it makes an even bigger difference if after the event, if you follow up with a thank you
Follow
note.
up, yes.
Because
Makes a big
only
difference.
about 20 or 30% of students do that. And if you do it, you're going to be one of the 20 or 30 they're going to remember. And so always make sure you follow up. But we have so many other things in addition to just fairs. We have different workshops. So many workshops, guys. So many workshops. So feel free to come to any of those. I just did one on job and internship searching on Monday. We've got social media, networking, professional etiquette, and we have all these different workshops. So feel free to check out our calendar, okay? And this is just a little bit more information about some of the things we can help you with personally. I would say if you have a lot of questions, you really want to sit down with your consultant, that's probably the way to begin. Just coming to like a walk-in time, it's only about a 10 or 15 minute kind of question, so don't come in with lots of questions for that. But again, here's some of the things we can help you with. Here's our phone number. Anytime you want to make an appointment, just call 706-542-3375. And we all have our email addresses. You're welcome to reach out to us. We're just not going to make appointments personally through our email, so it's just calling that number. Okay, the number is in your guide. I think it's on page 3. It's a little hard to see. I wish they put it on the front pages here, but if you look on actually it's page 4 at the very top, our number, and then all of our email addresses, as well as the majors that we take care of, and our pictures and everything, are right there on that page 5. Okay?
Is Brittany on there?
Yep, Brittany is on there. Brittany is actually the one on the far left. Yep. So questions, concerns, things you learned today. What's something new you learned today about a resume?
That's a nice thing. We want to talk about sort of from the employer side, what we're looking at, and I think she had great advice, honestly, because exactly what she's saying is kind of what you'll hear echoed here, which is nice. So you know that they're giving you good advice about how a lot of us feel as well. And so I've been in the HR field for a while now. I'm also an attorney as well, so I do that plus some legal work for the company. And Elise has been in HR now for a while too, but had additional experience in some education as well too. So we've kind of come to HR from different routes, but we really like it. And more than anything, we really want to get to know the people and pick the right people for our company. We want you all to be happy if you work with us, and we want to be happy for picking you. So I think that's where most HR people come from, and so we wanted to give you a little insight into how we handle it, and kind of take some of the
as many questions as
mystery.
you want to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're ever wondering kind of what's happening behind the curtain as far as what are
When
they
you
seeing
send
for
your
my
resume.
resume, what did they think about the interview, ask us this whatever questions you want throughout
Yeah.
this presentation.
So we wanted to show you sort of something that we think is funny, just to kind of show you what happens in HR sometime, I think, when they think about an interview, and people want to stand out in different ways. And so here's a way that we would not necessarily recommend, but it's sort of a good.
Oh, it's the sound again. Hang on.
Hold on.
I got
Did I
this.
mess up my thing?
Yeah.
So our plan for today is just give you a view from inside HR, suggestions for success, and then if you all have any questions, of course, stop us at any time. And this is what you want to talk about this a little bit, because I think this is a good point of.
Yeah. So the first point is just it's your life, it's your career, and it's your future. So we have this Bill Cosby quote, but I think the biggest thing that you need to think about when you're applying for jobs is research the company and realize that this is a huge commitment for you as well as for the company. And so own who you are and what type of work environment you want to be in, and make sure that that you're kind of driving that. You're in control of your own life. And so if you are, when you're looking at resume or applying to jobs and those sorts of things, you want to think about what are you wanting? What are you wanting from a career? What are you wanting from an employer? And then looking for the right fit. And so, if you're wanting to do coaching, or you're wanting to do housing, or what did you say you were looking at as far as
History.
careers? History. Okay. Just thinking about, so for example, I worked for an employer for only about 3 months, and it just turned out to be a terrible fit. And had I done more research going into it, I would have known that. I was so focused on having the right resume and doing well in the interview and getting the job offer that I didn't think a lot about, okay, they may even offer me the job, my resume might look good, but what do I want, and do I really want to work here? And so I know sometimes when we're in that situation where we're looking for something, we're making a career move or a transition, it can feel scary and we want to kind of jump on something, which sometimes you have to, but just really think about that you're also driving this process. So just be thinking about what you all want from a career and what you want from a job.
And ask questions of the company too, and find out if that's where you want to work.
Yeah.
Because our work environment is very much casual. We work pretty much in a warehouse. We work with athletes. It's very different. It's not sort of a really nice professional environment that you've got like I don't know.
It's not like an investment
snacks in the
bank.
break room
Right.
or something, but you don't have to dress nice and you can
Matt
wear
used to work with us, so he can
jeans
tell
and
you
stuff.
that.
Very laid back.
Very
you
laid
want to think about don't try to please everybody else. Try to think about who you are. And so with
Yeah.
resumes, even with her presentation, it can feel a little overwhelming sometimes. It's like, oh gosh, okay, I need to put this, I don't need to put this. And yes, you want to put your best foot forward. You want to make your resume look professional, but also let it reflect who you are. So.
Yeah, and so sort of one of our first steps, which you've got some great information, is about create a great resume, because a lot of what she's talking about is really important as far as making it concise, because she's right, we look at it really quickly. But what's great about it is if you have some really good experience, we can hone in on it quickly and decide, it's a quick 2 different piles, talk to them or don't. And then we go from there. So a lot of times it's look at your resume and then a phone call or an email to kind of find out how you handle it. So the first thing is a great resume. I would say a cover letter too. A lot of people, as long as the cover letter is short, to the point, and tells more about you. Especially with, you all have very different kinds of experience than a lot of people, so talk about that.
Yeah.
And talk about why you're looking for a job now.
Right.
And what you learned that would translate into a job that you're in now.
It can supplement your resume, so you kind of said
Yeah.
that you grew up with your uncle and working in that industry, and so that's a great, you don't want to go into like a 3-page novel about your childhood or growing up or something, that
Yeah.
to say this is why I'm interested in it, I'm really passionate about it, is a compelling story. So you now,
Yeah.
that's not something you put in a resume maybe necessarily, but now that's something we know about you that's like, okay, now we've made the connection of why he wants to do this, and now I can look at his resume and
How
see.
long should the cover letter be?
Couple paragraphs.
Yeah, no longer than 1 page. I won't read it.
Because we start going,
Yeah.
it just gets too
It's usually
much.
about a paragraph. And I would say too with the cover letter, again, same thing with the resume. Make it professional, put your best foot forward, but also be yourself. So we just interviewed someone today, and one of the reasons she stood out to me is because in her cover letter, she said something real personal about our company, and it was different from the canned, like, I love EvoShield products. It was very personal about an experience that she had with EvoShield, but it was also short and succinct. It was like 1 sentence.
What'd she
Yeah.
say?
So she was just saying that she had bought something from EvoShield, I think is what she said, and she said your product speaks for itself, and I had outstanding customer service experience, which speaks volumes to me about your company. End of story. So it was like 1 sentence,
Yeah.
but it was kind of, I immediately was like, okay, you know our company, and you recognize that it's not just the product, but the customer service, which is what Matt
Which
needs
is a
to
big
do.
part of what we focus in on. So
yeah.
she hit exactly what we focus in on in like a sentence.
Yeah.
So she got the job.
She's close.
She's close.
She might. She had an interview today. She might get it.
So
She's
in
close.
the cover letter, basically, you writing something to the company you interviewing for?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Almost like you'd be talking to us about it, really. Because then the resume is pretty basic, kind of
Right.
boring, sort of, but
It's
this will
also-
tell you a little bit more about, we can really tell the voice of the person through the cover letter if it's really good. And then when we meet them, like you met her today and you felt like that matched with
Yeah,
her
it did.
cover letter.
Yeah.
So basically, instead of trying to put in your summary on your resume, you can basically put more of that in your
Cover
Yeah,
letter.
you could do it that way. Yeah, and
You
Yeah.
don't take up too much space trying to put a summary on the resume.
On
right.
resume,
It
that's-
just kind of
that's
depends.
true.
And you know what's great for y'all too, having been professional athletes and
Yeah.
are professional athletes, is you might be making like a total career change, going from that to doing something else. And so a cover letter can also highlight what you've done as a professional athlete and how that's going to help you in your new career, or why you're making the transition. So it kind of, use your cover letter to explain things that maybe aren't explained in your resume. If there's gaps in employment, you might want to explain that. So like, let's say I leave EvoShield for a couple of years and then I'm trying to apply for another job. I might, in my cover letter, say I took a couple of years off to spend time with my family and spend time with my son and be a stay-at-home mom. And so now an employer, instead of looking at the years on your resume and being like, well,
What's she been doing?
what have they been doing for this long? Your cover letter now explains it.
Or if you live in Atlanta but you're applying for a job in California, we're like, wait a minute.
That's a good one.
Tell us why, and tell us, well, I have family in, well, when I applied for the one in Athens, we lived in Cumming, and so we talked about it. And I think in my cover letter I said, I love Athens, always wanted to live there.
Yeah.
Speak me. It's sort of like,
Right.
'cause then you wanted to make sure, you don't want them to leave your cover letter and resume like, that doesn't make sense. If there's any
Right.
questions, we're probably not going to call you
Mhm.
unless you just have really good, because for example, we have someone in Texas who had applied for a job and the salary range was really, really low. And I remember being like, there's no way he would come over here for a $28,000 job or something. But when we talked to him, he had a really good resume and things, so we talked to him anyway, and I just started out with like, look, you realize this is the price. And he's like, oh yeah, but I
We're
have
not paying
family
for
there.
relocation.
Yeah, we're not going to bring you over here. We're not going to set you up in a house, And he's like, no, I get it, but I love the company and I want the experience and things like that. So he explained it, but anything you can do to help us understand you helps. And stand out.
I think that's an advantage y'all have. I mean, I'm not an HR director, but if I got your resume and cover letter, and on the cover letter it's like, for the past few years I've been playing professional football, or I played basketball at the University of Georgia. I would almost put that in a pile over here where I'd say, all right, I'm a sports fan, that's cool. I'm automatically going to look at this guy's resume. I mean, your resume might end up being terrible, but just having that in your cover letter, it interests me. And so you automatically, because I know some of the guys in here last semester were like, nobody wants to hire us because all we've done is play sports. You got to look at the other side of that. I'm interested because you played sports. And so
and
that's
our
going to make
company
me.
especially. I mean, you might have worn our stuff. We really want to talk to you.
Yeah, I know.
We like athletes a lot.
So I was gonna segue into the what she was saying. I had another guy who submitted a resume and he lives in Florida, and I was same thing where we need someone like next week. So I was like, what's this guy thinking? Not sure. Anyway, I ended up looking him up on social media, which segues to the next point. And I found out through social media that his whole family lives in Athens. So I was like, oh, well, that's why he's applying for this job. And if he had just explained that in a cover letter, that would be a lot easier. But that segues perfectly into the second piece, which is updating your online profile. And that's not just your LinkedIn, but also any social media, Facebook, Twitter,
Because
whatever else
we just
people
type
are
in your
on these
name
days.
and we find out
Yeah.
what you've been doing.
Yeah. And obviously, again, be yourself. Like if we see if we see a picture of you drinking with your friends, that's not a big deal. We drink with our friends too. But if your Facebook is just like albums and albums over and over of like, just partying, or you're putting up really offensive things, like that's immediately like I actually had that happen recently. I had someone apply for one of our kind of temporary warehouse positions, and I looked them up on social media and I was like, never mind. It was just not good. So
just lock them down.
careful
We
with that.
can't see them, and that's fine. Yeah. So then we would say network, like through this kind of stuff. It sounds like through UGA and things like that. And then have 3 professional references. Especially make sure they're professional references and not just maybe your aunt that you like a lot, because that doesn't help us. Because hopefully they'll all say that. And then what you do once you get all that kind of in order, apply for the job. And I think we said too with professional references, there's no need in our opinion to say professional references upon request, because we figure that. So unless you just want to put their names or something.
Like a really good one for y'all would be like a coach,
Yeah,
something that
I
can
would
speak
say.
to your work ethic and
And sometimes people, especially athletes, will put a letter behind their resume with the recommendation from their coach already, which is not a bad thing. I've seen that, especially with UGA. I think they do that a lot. And then we wanted to say too that this was just your sort of example.
Yeah, this was just sort of this is what a lot of resumes look like. So I think, let me look at this here real quick. Just make sure that you're summarizing, like she said, using bullet points. Again, this is real similar to what she was saying. It's black and white, just, same font all the way through. And then it's,
So the next one is this. Summarize, yeah, summarize, yeah. Oh yeah, she's.
Yeah, so the first thing in her resume is summarize, and so we won't talk about this a lot because she already went over this.
Yeah.
But you definitely want to just put the bullet points. You don't want to use the full sentences like I studied German and Spanish in high school and da 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 da. You just want to just real quick bullet points. It's so much easier when you only have 10 seconds or so, like she said, to just glance at bullet points and be able to see what your summary is.
And we were saying the same thing for athletes. There's no need to tell us that you played like little kid football, Pop Warner or something. Just we get that from what you're saying at the end. So that's the biggest part. And I think what she said earlier too about being honest is really important. It's just really smart. Because if we're talking about something and it doesn't match up with what you wrote, that just is that's bad. And we probably would have never brought it up anyway. So just make it honest in who you are. And if your GPA isn't great, but you still finished, okay, then just don't tell me your GPA. It's all right. I'm not going to ask about it probably anyway. So there's no need to sort of fudge it or say something that's not true. I have a pet peeve too of like when people put sort of anticipated graduation date or something like that. That's just for me. Like, I don't know, it may not bother you. I guess it's okay. I would rather you just say maybe currently in school or something like that, because sometimes they'll say anticipated graduation date and it's like 2 years away. Well, then you're still not, you just haven't graduated yet. It's okay. You can say you're in school currently or something. I don't know. It just makes it seems almost like like if they put the date on there, I'm assuming that's your graduation date, and then if you write after it, it seems like it's trying to be not honest. I guess
Yeah.
that's how I feel.
I also say, I actually didn't like one of the examples that she used with the volunteer information. She said, there was one up there, I think y'all probably saw it, where it said like, ran a 5K, whatever, and I think it was one of those where you have to do sponsorships, but to me, the reason I put that with honesty is, to me, that's a little inflated maybe. Lots of people run 5Ks, so I wouldn't have put that on there unless you like ran 100 5Ks in a year or something, you wanted to highlight that. Yeah, but if there's a lot of stuff on your resume that just feels very like fluff, then I'm gonna be like, well, this person must not have a lot to say then.
Yeah. And again, I think one of the things too is just, it's your integrity. So just make it be you, and then if it works out that you're a good fit for us, then it'll work itself out. And we don't need you to say things that you worry about or that we find out that aren't true, because there's a lot of things that we don't worry about. That kind of thing. I think she had really great advice about tailoring your resume to the job that you're applying for. Because we get a lot, sometimes even that have mistakes from the last job they applied for, and so when we're looking through, like, well,
Yeah,
wait a minute,
it'll
that's
say,
not even the same job.
like the objective at the top will be like,
Yeah.
to secure a job with the University of Georgia as, and you're like, no, no.
Yes. And so immediately we're like, oh, but that they weren't careful. And we need people who are careful and professional, and so that immediately makes us go, oh, well, this is your first step with us, and you're already not being very careful. So that's sort of a thing to think about too.
And just research the company, and this goes back to what I said at the beginning, is it's your career and your life, and so you want to make sure that you're targeting and honing in on places that you really want to work. So I would say, so like an example would be, if you think that you might want to work at EvoShield or something, a great thing to do would be to go on our website and read up on our company history, read about our values, read about our mission, and then you can even speak to that and be like, I really, something about even our values, or just something to make it personal, that you've actually researched the company, that you know the company, that you're excited about it. I think says a lot. So just know who you're speaking to, and know, like, if you're looking at something like EvoShield, you can probably even tell from our website and our careers page that we're a more relaxed company. So you should feel comfortable being more relaxed when you're speaking. But if you're applying it like as an investment banker, you're going to know that's going to be a suit and tie, like make sure it's just as clean as possibly can be. And then, so that kind of goes back to what I was saying, that is figure out what you want. Those are two very different things. So speak to your audience, but also be true to yourself.
And this is an example of sort of a different resume.
Yeah, so, she had talked about, we want it to look clean. I pulled this up here. This is actually a friend of mine. She worked at the Athens Community Council on Aging with me, and this is her resume, and I love this resume. And so, but the reason that this is okay for Katie is that she is an extremely creative person. She is involved in a ton of different things, and she wants to work for an employer that wants that side of her, that wants that creativity, that is looking for that. She's also applying to a lot of like marketing and design and that kind of jobs. So this is the kind of resume that would stand out if you're applying for that type of job. Now, again, I use the investment banker example. She's applying for they would throw this resume in the trash as soon as they saw it. So again, know your audience. But even, I don't know if you can even see this here. Like, she has this whole column over here that says, the more you know can't hurt you. And it's just these silly little things about herself and you read it and you're like, where did she come up with this stuff? But it really says, this resume is Katie Holt. If you ever met her or knew her, this says so much about her personality that, to me, what she's done now is she's branded herself and basically said, this is who I am. She's very professional. Excellent at her job, but she's basically saying with her resume, this is who I am. If you think I'm going to fit with you, then great, let's talk. If you don't, then that's
I'm
okay.
with it.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's just another perspective on it again to think about. This is your career. And
Okay. Any other questions so far? A lot of this is sort of what she's saying here too, be specific. We like a lot of stuff, data and things like that, and if you've never missed a game or things like that, that's important. I want to hear about anything like that you've done that is specific to you or would make me understand your work ethic or the fact that you are a team player. That's a big deal. So vague stuff, especially I really like those words that you put in there. I think those are great. And be as specific as you can with your experience. And then this is one of our things.
This is
Follow the
my biggest pet
instructions.
peeve.
Because if we tell you how we want to hear from you, then that's the way you need to do it. So if it's an email, then please do it, and please make sure you type in the right stuff in the title and make sure that's it. Because if you call us or follow up when that's not really what we're asking for, it's frustrating because we want to give everyone the fair shake at what's going on. And if we've asked you to do it a certain way, it's probably because our time is valuable, just like yours. And so we only have a certain amount of time to hire folks while we're doing everything else, like running payroll and helping with the folks that we have now and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't follow the instructions, it's frustrating, and frankly, it makes us go, I don't care how good this resume is, they're bothering me, and so I'm going to move them to the side.
So, every time I post for a job, it says to apply, and then it gives instructions. So it'll say email your resume to jobs@evoshield.com and make the subject line accounting specialist.
Whatever
So we're
you're
hiring for an accounting specialist right now. And it says specifically what the subject of the email needs to be, and then it says, and include 300 words in the email about why you think that you're a good fit for this. And so if someone emails me and the title, the subject says, accounting instead of accounting specialist, that seems like a small thing, but my first thought is, if you can't even follow instructions on how to apply for the job, then this is probably not going to work. And so, to me, that's like my first just sweep through is, well, they couldn't even do this, or someone will send me the resume but not put the 300 words in there, and it's like, well, again, you didn't even really read the instructions, so I'm not going to spend the time to
And a lot of
look at
times,
it or interview you.
we're just sort of sweeping resumes and sweeping emails into one group. And then when she has time to look at them, it's like 20 or 30 all at once. And so she's flipping down through, and it's just easy to go through to the next one. So I think that's an important thing. And some people like to have phone calls. We don't. I don't think a lot of HR people do. It's not, we'll call you. Don't call us. We'll call you. Same thing with the professional online profiles. It's great when we can link over to stuff on LinkedIn, or if you have a Facebook page, that's great, and professional, that's great. Because we learn a lot about you quickly. So I think that's great.
Matt said that last semester they had someone come in and talk specifically about LinkedIn. I don't know if you're going to do that again this semester.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
But it is a great way because on LinkedIn, do y'all have LinkedIn profiles right now? So LinkedIn is basically, it's a social network, but it's basically just your resume. But then you can ask for recommendations and that kind of thing. So if I have on my resume, Program Director of the Athens Community Council on Aging, I can then ask anyone who is connected with me from that job to recommend me. And so it's great if you go on someone's LinkedIn and they have a bunch of recommendations, because people aren't going to write a recommendation for you unless they did actually like you. And so it's just a great way to really quickly get to know someone, and it's more than what you just get from a resume. So
And just make sure it matches up.
yeah.
And then we talked about this too, is in your cover letter, explain why you want to work for us, why you think you'd be a good fit, things like that. We do like the follow-up, but, I've had people where I email them, and then before I know it, they're calling me and that kind of stuff, and that gets to be a little bit much. So let them sort of lead you in the process, which is kind of nice, so you just sort of get to follow up as you go.
Right.
But it's up to us to talk to you.
Right.
So
Definitely follow up,
Yeah.
for sure. You absolutely need to follow up on things. But yeah, like the email and then immediately follow 15 minutes later by phone call, that always is a big turn off for me at least.
Because we're trying to do the best we can. And then we said, be professional. It was funny when she was talking about the resume, I forgot about this one until just when she was saying it. One time I got a resume that wasn't in PDF and it was a Word format. And I flipped it on, and all of a sudden it was like, you could tell they had been formatting it, and it looked like they had sent it to a friend of theirs to make comments. And so when they sent it back to me, it had all the comments from their friend. And some of their friends were like, man, this is crazy good. Or he used like a different word that I was like, whoa. And so it literally had the F word on their resume, and I was like, but he was right. It was a pretty amazing thing that he had done, but I'm like, So I emailed the guy back, and I was like, just so you know, you may want to take that off your resume and make sure that you don't have comments from people. So just check it, send it to yourself or something, and make sure I'm sure he thought he had it where it wasn't on there,
Yeah.
of course, but it was. So just be careful with that. So it was funny, and I think I imprinted it out because I just wanted to keep it because I just thought it was hysterical that they would send it that way. But
And even
Yeah.
I had a guy this week that when we signed up, we hired him, but he sent me an email at like 2:30 in the morning at one point. And there was a lot of like grammar mistakes in it and stuff. And we were hiring for like a warehouse position, so it wasn't a big deal. But I did just shoot him an email. I was like, best practice. Don't email your employer at 2:30 in the morning, even if you're sober. It just doesn't look good. So
Right.
just try to be professional about even, like, because there's timestamps on there, and, you know, and I was trying to just kind of give him a heads up. It didn't bother me. We still hired him for the job. He was fine. And it was really funny when he came in because he was very cheap, and he was like, I'm sorry, yeah.
because
I
he
had
was
been
canceling
out.
the meeting or something,
Yeah,
right?
he
He
was like,
canceled
yeah,
the meeting
I
for the
had
next
been
day
out.
at 2:30 in the
You
morning.
know, and I was like, I don't need to know details. I really don't. I don't need to know why you're emailing me. You might have just been a night owl and been up, but just know that it makes people wonder, you know. So even things like that, just think about how things look professionally.
Yeah, and grammar mistakes, all that kind of stuff. I would take advantage of the Career Center to look at your resume. That's great. We were just talking, I should have done all that in college and law school, and I certainly didn't, and I should have, because I think it really would have helped. Because you just don't want to be put in the bottom of the pile for something silly like a grammar mistake or something. So be careful with that. And then this is funny too, that you had someone call you or email you on behalf of the person, like their girlfriend.
With their girlfriend.
Emailed
Emailed me her boyfriend's resume, telling me why she thought that he'd be so great for the job.
She's like, and she was really, I mean, she made a good argument that I'm sure he was great, but at least was like, you might want to have him contact us, because that doesn't really work. Or your mom or your dad. I mean, you know, it's amazing how people will do that. And it also tells us, if I hire you, am I going to be talking to your girlfriend or am I going to be talking to you?
Right.
Because I don't want to talk to them. I got enough of that stuff. We don't need that. So just think about that too. And then this is one thing too. Hopefully what we've shown you in this too is that we're human too. We want good people in our company. We want people to be happy, enjoy what they're doing, and we want it to be a great fit. And it's great for us when we can find that person and they're excited about coming to work for us and we're excited about having them. That is like the best part of the job. So just kind of know that there are people like us reading your stuff on the other side. So it's okay to be yourself. It's better, at least in our company. I would much rather talk to you than you try to put on a face, which usually makes you less attractive as an employee because you feel like, who are these people? You don't feel, you know, they're real stiff and not really talking about, like, talk about your athletic experience. Talk about what you've learned from that. That's great. I mean, we had a guy the other day who was coming in and he's an accounting guy and he's very quiet and stuff. We're talking for a while. And all of a sudden he starts talking about, well, yeah, that's when I was like a rodeo clown. I'm like, what did you say? And he's like the most serious guy. And he's like, I was a rodeo clown. And I'm like, what was that like? And so we talked for a while and then he like lit up and started talking. And then he started talking about being a rattlesnake hunter or something, like he did that too.
This guy's insane.
So we have hired him, actually, because he was so amusing that we talked for accounting about like this much, and then I was like, so wait a minute, who buys rattlesnakes from you? And he's like, went into the whole thing. He used to work at a cheese place. I mean, he's fascinating.
Yeah.
So today was his first day.
And
We hired him in like
he
2
did
days.
great. Yeah.
He did great. And we're like, okay. And he's like an accounting guy, and he's just very different. But until he started talking about his stuff, he was kind of like like a robot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know that this is gonna
That's
work.
one of the hardest things in interviews is just trying to get the other person to, like, I'm just a person,
Just
you
talk
know,
about
and
yourself.
I have to make a decision about your employment, but like, just be yourself and be, you know, be the best version of yourself, be
Yeah.
professional. But I had 2 interviews today and they were totally different. And the first lady, you could tell was just very uncomfortable and you know, I would say, so what do you want to know about the company and tell me about yourself? And it was, you know, the tell me about yourself was like, and I did this, and it was very short. And then the other lady was like, well, you know, I grew up in Chicago, and she just was very like warm and open. And I know that that's just different personalities too. I tend to be more of an introvert, but I think when you're interviewing, you want to try to, even if you are an introvert, try to kind of come outside of yourself a little bit and just show who you are too, and be conversational and
And ask us questions about the company too.
yeah.
We want to know that you've looked at it or you even understand what it is, that kind of thing. So, but I think, like she was saying, I think athletes especially, that is a great thing. And a lot of companies want to hire former athletes for a lot of different reasons. You guys, especially, oh my gosh, we talked about a million times, but working and being an athlete, going to school, that's a big deal to me. Because that means when I have you work just how many hours a day, it's not a big deal for you. You're up at 6 a.m. working out. I'm certainly not up at 6 a.m. working out. So I've got a lot of, that's, I already think that's great. You know, so go with that. Talk about that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's